Alright, as you probably gathered from the title, today I'm going to be talking about everybody's favorite Jon Snow impersonator, Diallos of House Hoslow, and how he's just a complete and total failure and pretty much sucks at everything. I'm not throwing any shade towards him. I mean, I'm done throwing shade at fictional characters. I did enough of that in my Celovis video when I was talking about Gideon. But I also wondered at what the point of Diallos' quest was. Like, if you complete it all the way through, like, what are you supposed to take away from it besides just getting his mask? I mean, you could just kill him for his mask. I know that's, like, a reoccurring thing in Dark Souls, obviously, but still, like, there's really no point to not kill him when you see him in Liurnia for his mask and whip. I mean, those are pretty good starting game equipment right there. But for the sake of structure, let's go over Diallos' questline in at least a summary of it. So you first meet Diallos at the Roundtable hold. He basically asks you if you've ever seen his servant who he's been trying to find for a while now, and apparently this always happens. She apparently always goes missing and he always has to find her. He also just introduces himself as Diallos rather than Diallos of House Hoslow or whatever, because he says himself that the names of noble houses don't really mean much out here in the lands between. Like, they don't hold any weight out here anymore. And I mean, he's not wrong, unless you're like a demigod or serving a demigod in some kind of high capacity, or the descendant of a literal god, or some badass astrologer who basically conquered a whole school of a bunch of pretentious ass mages and then formed her own royal house and became Queen of the Moon, only to be left by Radagon. I got a whole video about her coming soon, but yeah, unless you're like somebody like that or one of the demigods, you really don't mean shit out here. There's a few examples, or exceptions, I should say. Shabriri is one. There's a few others, but even then though, he just serves an outer god. That's the only reason he's kind of mentioned at all. But anyway, back to Diallos. Now, I went to the spot where you find Lanya before I ever made it to the Roundtable hold, and she doesn't spawn there or anything, and her corpse isn't there, so I don't think there's any way of finding her alive before you meet Diallos or anything like that, but I just thought it was worth mentioning. Anyway, the next time you see Diallos is in Liurnia of the Lakes. More specifically, he's at Academy Gate Town, or the wreckage of it, and he's standing over her corpse, and he's blaming the recusants. He's swearing that it has to be them who did it, and the recusants, of course, are the followers of Rykard and Tanith, who reside at Volcano Manor, who hunt down other fellow Tarnished, and basically are just saying, like, fuck the Erd Tree. That's their whole get down. I don't want to overstate what they do here, because I got a whole video about them coming as well. At this point in his quest, I would recommend for most people to just kill him, honestly, because you get a cool mask, you get his whip, and you won't get another chance to kill him for a while. I honestly don't think you'll get another chance to kill him until he goes to Jarburg, but just worth noting, just a thought. Anyway, after this, you won't see Diallos again until you make it to Volcano Manor, and he'll of course have joined up with the recusants he wanted revenge against. Now, he doesn't really explain. I personally thought that he was like trying to infiltrate them or something and kill them off from the inside at first, but that doesn't happen. He doesn't do shit. He just stays in that corner and doesn't do fuck all. In fact, as you progress through the Volcano Manor questline, you eventually kill Diallos' brother, his much more competent older brother, Juno Hoslow, who dual wields these chain whips to well, I gotta say, as far as all the NPC fights go, he's probably one of the most hard ones I've ever fought. He's right there with Irene for me, because I had a lot of trouble when I had to fight Irene, because I broke her quest line in Bloodborne, but unrelated. Anyway, he's a really tough fight unless you know what you're doing. Then you could whoop his ass pretty easily. But after I think you kill Juno, Diallos falls further into depression, and he's just like, I want to be left alone. I don't want to talk to anybody right now. So I'm assuming he knows what's been done to his brother. I can only assume that he knows you killed his brother. Honestly, I was wearing the armor of his brother when I went and talked to him, so I was like, look what I've done. I've murdered your brother. I was hoping for some kind of reaction like in the Dark Brotherhood questline of Oblivion, where if you drop the mother's head near that guy, the traitor of the Dark Brotherhood, he'll kind of be distracted by it and be like, what the fuck? I was hoping for something like that, but nothing. I didn't really expect anything, though. After that, Diallos' questline seems to just become a part of Jarburg. And Jarburg mainly has to do with the two NPCs of Alexander the Iron Fist and Jarbairn. Now, everybody knows Alexander the Warrior Jar. He's probably one of the more famous NPCs from the game. But Jarbairn wasn't even part of the original launch version of Elden Ring. In fact, Jarburg itself was kind of different at launch. They were all targetable enemy types rather than NPCs, and after Jarburg was added, it changed all the jars in Jarburg to NPCs. But Diallos makes his way here, and he's like, wow, this is really peaceful. I actually really enjoy it here. And if you get here before him, you can talk to Jarburg and offer to become their Potentate. Now, what Potentate means is essentially ruler. Like, I was going off of my knowledge from the Elder Scrolls, and I thought it meant interim ruler, but it just means ruler. And if you offer to be their Potentate, Jarburg declines and says your hands are not soft enough, basically. They're too rough. You got warrior's hands. Now this is where Diallos comes into play, where since he's not a warrior, in fact, he was never meant to be any kind of warrior at all. He was just some kid, the younger brother, living in his older, more powerful and storied brother's shadow, which was fine with him. He was kind of okay with it, and that allowed his older brother to shower him with, affection and all that. But this also resulted in Diallos not being really a warrior at all and having soft hands. The soft hands, I imagine, is just because the jars seem to have a sense of feel at least on their outer layer of the jar, and they like to be rubbed, and it's maybe nicer with soft hands. I mean, shit, I feel it. But Diallos does find peace here, and he swears to be their protector, and he does a good job of it at first. I mean, you see him repairing this one jar that seems all stressed out in it's in one of the shacks in Jarburg. But after a certain point, due to Diallos' presence there, Jarburg gets sacked. Now, people can argue that it's not his fault, but again, as I said earlier, or maybe I haven't said yet, if you kill Diallos, Jarburg never gets sacked. Just saying that right now. Anyway, back to Diallos' quest. After a certain amount of visits to Jarburg, though, it does get sacked, and Diallos is killed in the process. Almost all the jars are also shattered. Everybody except for Jarburg. I'm assuming he was hiding or something, or maybe that Diallos kept him safe. We don't see any of the bodies of the alleged poachers that sacked the village, though. They are mentioned a couple times, though we never see any in the game. I mean, there's a couple item descriptions that suggest that depraved perfumers are one of the groups that's known to hunt the jars for their for the jar shards themselves, and probably for the innards also. But it is often mentioned, though, that the jars are targets of poachers. Diallos, though, asks you if he did good if the jars are safe, and I guess, one of them is safe, but you can tell him yes or no. I always tell him yes, because I'm not an asshole, but he really didn't save anybody. I mean, the only thing he did outside of causing ruin for the village was give Jarburg the proper motivation to go on a warrior's journey, which is kind of cool when you think about it. It's very anime. One thing I liked about this quest, though, is that when Jarburg is standing over Diallos' corpse and saying that the tale of House Hoslow is told in blood, it mirrors how we see Diallos standing over Lanya's corpse in Liurnia. He says the same thing while standing over. I thought that was a nice little thing that showed that Jarburg had taken a lot from Diallos, or at least learned a thing or two from him. Even though, like I said, Diallos was never meant to be a warrior. That was more his brother's thing. I mean, he was a good ruler and kind leader to the jars when he was there. Everybody seemed happy when he was around, but again, he was also a weak ruler, so he got them all killed, in a way. He also kind of got his servant killed by not keeping better track of her. I know that's kind of not entirely on him, but I mean, how does she just wander off like that at a certain point? It's never really explained. It just makes to look him more incompetent as well. But his incompetence at being a warrior, I'm pretty sure, is at least part of the entire point of his character, because when he becomes the ruler of Jarburg, he's loved by all of the jars, but at the same time he's a weak ruler and he gets them all killed. So it reminds me a bit of Tywin Lannister's speech that he says to Tommen after Joffrey dies in the church or whatever. I reference Game of Thrones a lot. If you guys don't like it, I feel it, but it's just something that I've watched for fucking 10 years and then watched get destroyed. Again, this isn't about all that, though. He also knowingly joined the people that killed his servant. I mean, that was just ridiculous. He said maybe that he was going to try and infiltrate them or something like that, or I thought that. But he doesn't. He doesn't do fuck all. He just kind of hangs around there, and then eventually you kill his brother, and he's like, what the fuck? I've joined the people that have now killed my brother and my servant. I better go somewhere else. And he only leaves, I think, after you kill Rykard. So he only leaves after you've killed the current dude he's sworn to. Which, I mean, God, the guy... I guess he's not an oathbreaker, but still. I don't know. I don't hate Diallos. He's got cool armor. He had cool intentions when it came to Jarburg. He was a good ruler. He was kind to him. But at the end of the day, you got to kill the guy before he ever sets foot there, because he gets that whole peaceful-ass village sacked. That's the only peaceful place in the game, and he gets the place fucking destroyed. But I guess, like I said earlier, maybe being completely useless in a fight is the whole point of his character. I'm not sure. But I think I've made a good enough case as to why you should probably just kill him when you run into him in Liurnia, at least if you care about the jars. If you don't give a shit about the jars, then, I mean, sure. You know, let him live. He doesn't really do much anyway. He just kind of exists and drifts around from spot to spot until he's finally killed by jar poachers. But anyway, it's worth noting, though, that the jars have a really interesting take when it comes to mortality. I mean,
I implore you, take what I bequeath from inside me. All vessels are destined to one day break. But the great Alexander lived as a warrior to his last.
believe that all vessels are destined to crack one day, and that what matters is having a good death. So I guess in the eyes of the jars and in Jarburg, Dialos died a good death and a worthy death, worthy enough for Jarburg to then harvest Dialos's remains and put him in the pot, if you will, and carry him on further with a bunch of other champions that you get from the innards of Alexander, which you get at the end of the Iron Fist quest. And it should also be mentioned, though, that Jarburg and Jarburg's quest can be done even if you killed Dialos when you first met him. So that was the main point of the video. There's also this theory that Dialos joined Volcano Manor specifically to have his brother killed because he wanted to get away from his brother's overbearingness and overprotectiveness and keeping him away from the fight and all that, which is possible, but I didn't really feel a need to elaborate on it further than just explaining it real quick. One last thing I wanted to mention about the Hoslo Bros was that, aside from the fact that they're Castlevania references, it seems like Dialos specifically is trying to be a warrior to spite his brother for some reason. It's kind of weird, but I guess understandable. I don't know. I don't have an older brother, so I wouldn't know. I mean, they seem pretty different, but I guess all we know about his brother Juno is that he declined a letter, an invitation to Volcano Manor, saying that he's walked enough paths of blood, which kind of sounds a little edgy, but, you know, that's just me. And I don't know much about what the Hoslo rites of passage were, but it says that the brother Juno had this inability to commit action, and it was such that he never did anything to harm his younger brother and instead showered him with affection. I guess the brothers are probably supposed to challenge each other for who gets to be head of the family or whatever, but Juno never did because he couldn't bring himself to harm his younger brother Dialos, who was definitely not a warrior at heart. Just another thing, you know, thought worth mentioning. But anyway, that's my video for today. I got the Nox one coming soon. It's like almost done. And then the Mausoleum one that I'm still like trying to like research a little more because I don't want to say something that's going to easily get, you know, disproven or something, obviously. Anyway, though, if you guys liked the video, please like. If you didn't like it, please dislike. If you like my videos in general, I would consider subscribing. That would really help me out a bit. The next video will be up either tomorrow or the next day. You guys have a good one. See ya.
I'm ashamed of House Hoslo after all.